Hello, welcome to How to Automotive. Today I got 5 tips for you. I got a couple tips for EVAP testing and a couple tips for working with your tools. I'm Brian Esser from How to Automotive, and stay tuned for that. So when you're testing for EVAP leaks, most of the time you're looking for the hoses and the lines, but you'd be surprised at what can actually leak on an EVAP system. So on this case here, this valve here, this is the valve that actually vents the fuel vapors into the fuel canister on this Toyota here. And if you look here, there's a little bit of stain. Well, with the help of my smoke machine, I was able to find the leak. And if you look here, I got it out now. And when I squeeze on the tab right here, you can see the crack here flare open a little bit, and you can see where the fuel vapors were leaking through. So this was a very, very small leak. It was very difficult to find. Without the help of my smoke machine, the Ready Smoke by Redline, and my scan tool to close off the vent and purge valves, I would never have found that leak. That would have been a really tough one. I would have never expected that to be the root cause of the problem. So when you're looking for these leaks, be sure you check everything, because anything could be the leak. Okay, so the flow gauge is your basic gauge that pretty much all smoke machines have. And you would operate it by turning the valve and start the smoke flowing through. If there's a very small leak in the system at all, the leak down gauge here will basically verify it. So you would shut your gauge off, and if this needle was to bleed off in any way, shape, or form, that means that there's still a leak in the system. So this is a more fine-tuned gauge to look for those, 10,000 or smaller leak, basically.
So those are really hard to find leaks.
Yeah, really hard to find.
The ones that you've looked everywhere, you're going to set this up, right? You're going to close it off, and if this begins to move, that tells us that there's a leak.
So whenever you're working on suspension, a lot of times you have to push the axle through the hub to get the suspension apart, but sometimes they're frozen, and it's not a good idea to hit the end of it with a hammer. It can mushroom the head or damage the threads. So what you want to do is use a proper tool. And OTC makes a great tool for that bolts up to the hub and pushes the axle through. What I do is I use a little bit of penetrating oil on it, spray it to help things move. Then you bolt the tool up to the hub here. And as you screw the center bolt in, it pushes the axle through. So I'm using an impact with the tool. Just give us a couple of hits with the tool, and it'll push the axle right through. And that way you're able to get the suspension apart. If you need this tool, inbox me and I'll send you a link. So my tip for you guys today is to use scrap cardboard pieces to help guide oil where you want it to flow, especially when you're taking off oil filters. That way the oil doesn't drain down into the subframe. It takes forever to get that oil cleaned out of the subframe that goes inside the holes and stuff. So this way you can direct it right where you want it to go, and it saves you a bunch of time and energy. And also, you're not using a whole bunch of brake clean to clean up oil spills. So that's going to save your shop money as well. My tip for you today may seem obvious, but I see a lot of people do that. Is when you're working in a lot of the dirt and debris from the suspension and motors and stuff like that fall on the floor, and I see guys track this stuff all over the shop. Same thing with coolant and oil and stuff like that. And they'll just continue to work and they'll track this coolant and stuff all over the shop. So if you were to sweep and mop this right as it happens and not track it all over the shop, you would save yourself a lot of time. So it's a lot easier to sweep a small pile like this versus sweeping the entire shop. So you'd be even more productive by taking your time to sweep and mop little messes up. To sweep and mop a small mess like this takes about a minute. To sweep and mop the entire shop may take you 15 or 20 minutes. I'm Brian Esser from How to Automotive, and I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Encourage you to subscribe. Invite you to head over to the howtoautomotive.com website for more valuable videos.